All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here on another edition of Extreme Health Radio. Today is going to be a fun show. I'm really excited about it. We have Dessie Andrews on, and we're going to be exploring some topics other than health today for the first time, and she'll be educating us in the world of freedom and liberty and all kinds of fun issues like that. So I'm really excited about this. This is a passion of mine. It's been a passion of mine for a few years now, so it'll be fun to talk with Dessie. I want to wish you a great day. I hope you're having an amazing day wherever you are. We are broadcasting currently live from Southern California. It's a great day here, and hopefully you're having a good day wherever you are. And we broadcast 3 days a week right now, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, actually 4 days a week. We do a Friday show, or a Saturday show, I should say. So it's been a lot of fun bringing these shows to you. And if you would like to follow us on Facebook, we would appreciate that. That would be a lot of fun to have you a part of our community at extremehealthradio.com/Facebook. And you can just like us on there and get our posts every day. That would be fun to connect with you on there. And I want to thank Mike Adams of naturalnewsradio.com for having us on his network of shows. It's really been a blessing to be on there. So thanks, Mike, for that. And let's see, today is Wednesday, February 27th, 2013. The year is already starting to fly by. It's going to be over before we know it, I'm sure. And this is episode number 67, so you could find it at extremehealthradio.com/67. And eventually we'll get the transcription up there. We'll get anything that the guest mentions we'll have on that page. So no need to take notes, just refer to that page. And if you have any questions for me or for the guest ever, just email them to justin@extremehealthradio.com, and we'd love to have you ask your questions and answer them to the best of our ability. Or you could call our voicemail line. It goes straight to voicemail. That's 949-391-7363, and then I can play your message to our guest on the air. So feel free to do that. We'd love to have you do that. And before we get started, this show is brought to you by Amazon.com. So if you ever make any purchases on Amazon, please go to extremehealthradio.com/Amazon and make a purchase that way. It'll just redirect you over to Amazon, and then we'll get a little commission for your order. So that would be a great way to support us. And let's see here. We've got some great guests coming up. On Friday, March 1st, we've got Karen Ramsey from superhealthychildren.com. She'll be talking about, obviously, children and natural childbirth and raising healthy kids, which is desperately needed, I feel, today. And then on Monday, March 4th, we've got Jessica Anskoff from thewellnesswarrior.com.au. She's a real inspirational person. She overcame cancer naturally. She's got an amazing story, so tune into that show. And then on Wednesday, March 6th, we've got Rick Simpson from phoenixtears.ca. And I don't know if you've ever heard of his work, but he's doing a lot of work with hemp oil and cancer. It's just amazing stuff. So tune into that show. But today we've got Dessie Andrews. I'm so excited. This is going to be great. I first heard about her on YouTube, I believe, and I think I was looking up some Charlie Sprinkle stuff, so that was really fun. She's a student and a lover of liberty issues, and she's been involved in helping people all over the country with freedom issues and states' rights, and she's a lover of the Declaration of Independence, which we all are. And rumor has it she used to read that as a child. Is that right, Dessie?
Yes, I did. I read it every night before I went to sleep. Every night it made me cry.
Did you really? What caused?
Not as a child, but as a teenager.
What caused you to do that?
Oh, my dad had a Coca-Cola plant, and as a promotion, Coke gave the dealers or somebody the Declaration of Independence on parchment paper, and I just thought it was beautiful, so I tacked it above my bed, and then I just became addicted to it. It's just so beautifully written, and it just means so much. And I just read it every night because I wanted to remember.
Wow, and that was as a teenager.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
And that was a long time ago.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. You know, it's funny. I was just saying at the beginning that I found you through, I think I was looking up some Charlie Sprinkle stuff on YouTube, and that's how I saw you. And, yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, I just loved him. He was just a thinker outside the box. He was really a great guy.
Yeah, he's no longer with us, right?
He's no longer with us.
Okay, and he did a lot of work with that Copper Cards company or business or something like that?
Yeah, I never did get too much into that. I feel that every time we get, and nothing against copper cards or anything, it's just that everybody wants somebody else to join whatever it is they're doing, and nobody does. Mm-hmm. And everybody else has different ideas about what should be done. And as a result, everybody's fragmented. I think we should have one platform and stick to it. And if we all are lovers of the Declaration of Independence, that should be our platform and nothing else. I don't know that you can commercialize freedom, so that's a little difficult for me to. Enough said.
Right. Yeah, I hear you. So now you work with people kind of around the country. Do people just contact you and you help them with their issues they have? Is that kind of what some of the work you do?
Yeah, I'm just kind of a sounding board for a lot of issues. I mean, people get in trouble, what they call criminal trouble. I just try to hold their hand and help them through it. I'm not an attorney, and I can't do anything that an attorney can do. I can't go to court. I can't do a lot of things. However, I can help people find the best way out of a situation. Mm-hmm. Attorneys don't do so.
And you do go to court sometimes and just sit in and...
I'm a court watcher. Yeah. I'm a court watcher. But other than that, I've been involved in some suits myself, which I really hate. I hate to be in court. There just is no redress. There is no justice in our courts.
Right.
And so I really don't like that at all. But yeah, I go to court. I understand about courts. We have absolutely no redress of grievance. We have no rule of law in this country, and it gets worse and worse every day. I had occasion to my friend talked with an attorney today to find out about some renters who were flashbanged and concussion grenaded. And he was just going on and on and on about the fact that it's time to get out. He's been an attorney for 35 years, and he said it's so egregious, the fact that we don't have any law in this country. It's anarchy all the time.
Yeah, they just kind of basically do their own thing, don't they? I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, and I maintain that when there's no leadership at the top, there's certainly no leadership at the bottom. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that they have no fiduciary duty or responsibility to the public. Mm-hmm. And everything has become contractual. They're all corporations, and they all have inter-office memos and memorandums of understanding. All these agencies, which are not constitutional, all of these agencies do business with each other through contracts. Mm-hmm. And you'll find that, like CPS, I'll have a contract with the sheriff, that the sheriff goes out and picks up deadbeat dads. Those in Texas, those go through the county commissioners. They sign off on all of those contracts. And so everything has just become corporations and contracts.
Now, speaking of contracts and corporations and things like that, as far as I know, there's so much that we're not taught, obviously, in school. And one of the things that I believe is true is who we are has been incorporated from the government itself, right? So they could only deal with us as we are a corporation. Is that right?
Well, a creation of a creator can't have more rights than the creator, is the way it boils down. Okay. And since we get our unalienable rights from our creator, mm-hmm. We allow the government certain latitude. We give them power to do certain things. So whenever you look at a constitution, you always look at the word, you do a search on power. And so, like you're in California, the California Constitution, you would see what power has been given to the legislators from the people. Like, they don't have the power to tax, they don't have the power to property tax, they haven't been given those powers, yet they assume them because we're ignorant.
Right, obviously because we're ignorant. We don't understand anything about the law or anything, right?
Let me give you an example of how ignorant we are. I find this, when I inform people of this, they find it shocking, but it's in black and white, and it certainly can be researched. Do you believe that we had a period of prohibition in this country? No alcohol consumption?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that prohibition was repealed?
Yes.
Okay, let me read you.
I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong, but
you know that's a trick, don't you? Yeah. Let me read you the actual amendments. Amendment 18, which was the institution of prohibition, says, after 1 year from the ratification of this article, the manufacture, sale, or transportation of intoxicating liquors within, the importation thereof into, or the exportation thereof from the United States and all territories subject to the jurisdiction thereof for beverage purposes is hereby prohibited. So we believe that alcohol consumption was prohibited by that amendment. True?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's how it sounds?
Right. That's how it sounds. Right.
Okay. The 21st Amendment says the 18th article of the amendment to the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed. So that was the repeal of Prohibition in 1933, December 5th, 1933, a very bad year for all of us. Section 2 says the transportation or importation into any state, territory, or possession of the United States for delivery or use therein of intoxicating liquors in violation of the laws thereof is hereby prohibited.
Isn't that saying the same thing as the 18th?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Except for manufacture and sale, it is the same. They took manufacture and sale out, and I've never found the Supreme Court case that did this, but I'm certain that when they passed the 18th Amendment, that there was a court case that said that Congress doesn't have the right to regulate manufacture or sale of any product, because Congress has only given the power to regulate commerce between the several states and Indian nations and foreign governments.
Isn't that the Commerce Clause that people...
That's the Commerce Clause.
Okay.
But that is the only power that the legislature, that Congress has to regulate, the only power. And it's between the states, between the several states, between Indian nations, and between foreign nations. So they have no right to regulate anything in Texas or California, especially the manufacturer sale. And there's a really, really great court case that everybody should read, even if they're not familiar with legal briefs or opinions. They should read U.S. v. Lopez, which is a 1995 case, in which the Supreme Court explains exactly what commerce is, and commerce means transportation, period.
Commerce means transportation, okay.
Yeah, commerce means transportation. So let's say that you're a producer of dynamite. That's a very dangerous substance. Can the government tell you what to do with that substance?
No.
They can tell you how to transport it.
Yeah.
And they can tell you, and they can charge fees for the transportation. That's so that's the only thing they can regulate is the transportation of the dynamite. It has to be carried in a certain container. It has to blah blah blah. Those are the laws that they can set up to regulate that. On raw milk today, that they're holding a protest down at the state capitol here in Austin. That they can sell a dairy can sell raw milk to somebody if they come by and buy it from the dairy, but the dairy can't transport it to a farmer's market and sell it.
Now that's within the state of Texas, whatever that means, but inside Texas.
But they're trying that all over the place, aren't they?
Yeah, it's crazy how they're doing that.
Well, they can't keep them from transporting it. They could regulate the ways that it could be transported, but they can't keep the manufacture or sale from happening because they don't have the right to regulate that anywhere.
So only between interstate commerce, is that right?
Well, that's the feds.
Right.
The states can't tell you what job you can have, what occupation you can have. They can't regulate manufacture or sale. They don't have any greater power than the United States, which is commerce, which is transportation. So they could tell you how you could transport your milk to a fair, but they can't keep you from selling it. And people don't understand that. So what it talked about in this item today that came that deals with the milk was they could get licenses to do something. Do you know what a license is, Justin?
Gosh, isn't that just a certificate to do something that would otherwise be illegal or something, wouldn't it?
A license is permission to do something that would otherwise be illegal.
Right.
All right. Let's take the 18th and the 21st Amendments.
Yes.
They regulated the manufacture, sale, and transportation of intoxicating liquors. Then the 21st Amendment only regulated the transportation of the intoxicating liquors. But a really important part is to know who you are and where you are. And in the 18th Amendment, I thought I'd use that as a theme today because it's so illustrative of what we're trying to learn. In the 18th Amendment, it says that regulate the manufacture, sale, blah, 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 of the exportation thereof from the United States and all territories subject to the jurisdiction thereof. What does that mean? Do you have a clue?
Well, the United States, wouldn't that be only the places like Guam or national parks or
Well,
Washington,
that's
D.C.?
the territory subject to the jurisdiction. The United States is in an area not to exceed 10 miles square that had been ceded to the United States for that purpose from Baltimore and from Maryland and Virginia.
Right.
That's Washington, D.C. So whenever you see the United States, it says it's less than a 10-mile square area. And if you look at the legislative powers, Congress, the things that Congress can do, Congress can make laws for the United States not to exceed 10 square miles. So everybody says, well, the feds do this and the feds do that. That's by contract with the states. The states have ceded the power to the federal government. And that's contractual, but it doesn't bind you and it doesn't bind me because Congress can't make laws that impose on me because I'm not in the United States.
Wouldn't we be a part of that contract, though, from the state to the feds because we're surety or we're part of assets of the state?
You think you're an asset of a state?
Well, they think that,
Well, it doesn't matter what they think. It's there are 4 organic documents of the United States of America. The first is the Declaration of Independence. That's the thing that ensures our rights and says that we have unalienable rights. They cannot be liened. And among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, Thomas Jefferson wanted to say the property instead of the pursuit of happiness. And so he said, well, if you own property, you're happy. So he ceded that point.
Right.
But we have the right to property unimpeded and unalienable. So we have the right to earn a living and keep everything we earn for ourselves. We have the right to buy property and own that property unimpeded and unaliened, other than a contract we would sign ourselves. You have the franchise tax board in California.
Oh, yes.
It's a pretty onerous institution.
Yes, it is.
Do they have dominion over you, or do you have dominion over them?
I would say the latter.
Yes, you have the right to earn a living unimpeded and unalienable. However, they have put statutes in. Now, those statutes only apply to the entities or the agencies that are contracted to them.
Okay.
Let me get back to the 4 organic documents. The second was the Articles of Confederation, where the colonies that existed got together and said, let's do this together as one body instead of 13. Mm-hmm. They said, okay, so they wrote out certain concessions in the Articles of Confederation. Now, did the Articles of Confederation, did that bind you, or did that bind the states or the colonies?
The Articles of Confederation, that would bind the states, wouldn't it?
Exactly.
Right.
So then we come to the Northwest Ordinance, which dealt with the territory that had been ceded after the War II from King George to the United States. And the Northwest Ordinance there had to be a law for the territory that had been ceded, so that was the law that applied to that. And it was really a means of taxing the territory, but it's still the territory of the United States. Mm-hmm. Then we had after the North, and it had conditions in there whereby if they had 60,000 inhabitants, that in a territory that they could mark their boundaries and become one of the several states. So they had a way out to achieve statehood with their own constitution, which only applied to state citizens. Then we had the Declaration of Independence of September 17th, 1777, or 87, wow, lost my mind there, which is not the one we see now. It has been slightly changed, but
yeah.
Nevertheless, the Constitution is an imposition on governments. It deals with how governments have to work between themselves and maintain our rights.
Okay.
The amendments to the Constitution of the Bill of Rights do not enumerate the rights that we have because the Declaration of Independence says they're unalienable, but it does enumerate some of them so that governments won't go astray. Sorry.
So the Constitution is more the state's contract with the federal government.
It's a limitation of government power is what it is.
Okay, on the states.
The states, not really on the states, only on Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And the states signed on to it because only one entity should deal with foreign powers, not 13.
Oh, I see.
And it says to form a more perfect union, the preamble does. Well,
okay, I'm sorry about that. Our phone conversation actually got cut off there. I'm not sure what happened. Desi was saying it's very windy there in Texas at the moment, so maybe the wind got the best of her phone line. We will try to get her back right after this break, but we got to take a short break. We're having a lot of fun with Dessie Andrews, and we'll be right back in a couple minutes after this break. So recently we had a really, really great doctor and author on our show, Dr. Doris Rapp, and she was on episode number 56. And she talked about these really great Austin air purifiers and the necessity of having clean air in your house. And she was talking about how inside of our houses, the air is very, very toxic, and it's more toxic than even outside. And the reason is because there's chemicals that are off-gassing from our paints that are in our house, our chemicals, and our carpets, and the dust and the pollen and the mold and everything else that's inside the air of our house. And we don't get good ventilation. And so having some of these air purifiers are really, really critical. And I spoke with her at length off the air about why she likes these Austin air purifiers and why she promotes them. And it turns out that not only do they get rid of the pollens and the allergens and the dust and the particles and everything that's floating around in your air like most purifiers do, which is great, but they also get rid of, I think, 3,000 different chemicals that are inside. They're just floating around your house. And, these things end up in our lungs and in our bloodstream and all of that kind of stuff. And Doris Rapp has been researching this kind of information for many, many years. I think she's in her 80s now, so she really has a handle on which products are good and which products are not so good. And she recommends the Austin Air. And after talking with her, doing a ton of research on my own, and speaking with a company and looking into it from a lot of different angles, we agree with her. So if you're interested in a good quality air purifier, check it out. You can learn more at extremehealthradio.com/Austin, and you'll be redirected to a website that will sell these things. And they're really, really great machines, and I highly recommend them. If you have a baby, you want to have these things in their room or in the room where you sleep, or you can take them out and put them in your family room. So if you want to listen to that episode, extremehealthradio.com/56 to learn what she says about them, feel free, but we highly recommend them. So it's extremehealthradio.com/Austin, or you could check out our store and learn more about it on there as well. So thanks for listening, and let's get back to the show. All right, we are having a good time here with Dessie Andrews. I apologize for the call being cut off, but I think I should be able to splice this all together in the show editing and make it sound good for you. So thanks everybody for joining us, and we're having a lot of fun talking about the 4 organic laws with Dessie Andrews before the break. And so Dessie, which law were you on? I think you were on the Northwest Ordinance.
No, then we went to the Constitution.
Oh, right.
The Constitution, which limits the power of the federal government and is just a compact between the states to have one central government.
Okay.
And so that the United States of America deals with other nations.
Okay. Now, is there a difference between the United States and the United States of America? They're two different things, aren't they?
Yes, they are two different things.
Okay.
The United States is the entity that acts for the United States of America, but the United States is in Washington, D.C., and is regulated by the U.S. Code and the D.C. Code.
Okay, so the United States of America is the corporate side of the United States, is that right?
The United States of America is the national power that does business with other national powers.
Oh, I see. Okay. Wow. It's crazy that no one really knows this. It's like a hidden thing that most people just don't know about.
Well, people don't read the Constitution, do they?
No.
When it says that the Congress may make laws for for United States of America not to exceed 10 square miles. I mean, you've got to scratch your head and wonder. And then the other thing is the voting business. I reluctantly, years and years and years ago, when I realized what was going on, had to give up my right to vote or stopped voting because I was voting in federal elections, and I've never voted in a state election in my life. And I'm 73 years old, and I've been voting since I was 21, or I started voting when I was 21. Mm-hmm. But it was always a federal election.
Yeah, so when we vote, it really has no bearing. Wouldn't it be similar to voting for like the president of Pepsi or Coca-Cola or something? I mean, it really has no bearing on our lives, does it?
No, and how many of us have ever made any change with our vote?
Right.
Diebold.
You have to...
Diebold made the change.
Yeah, that's right. My son said Diebold makes the change.
Who's that? Diebold?
Diebold, the voting machines now. Oh. They're the ones that dictate who win. But if you have to be a U.S. citizen in order to vote in a state, then you're voting in a federal election. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the considerations. I mean, you can't vote unless you check that you're a U.S. citizen.
Wow, and that whole U.S. citizen thing's a spooky thing in and of itself, isn't it? I mean, it's just like a rabbit trail with all this stuff.
Oh, it's spooky. You know, the film Lincoln, I couldn't go see it. I'm a movie nut. Uh-huh. And I see all the stuff on the big screen, but I couldn't go see Lincoln because I had... my youngest son, I had him do research on war powers years ago. And so he read all the newspapers between 1860 and 1865 for Atlanta and New York, Washington, D.C. and New York. Okay. And so I learned a lot about war powers. And the reason for the Civil War, or the war between the states, was to do away with states' rights. And Lincoln will go down in history as probably the most powerful man in the world because he got free people to give up to commit to slavery voluntarily. Mm-hmm. As a whole. So that's when the federal government became federalized and did away with, you notice when I first started I was talking about the several states. Mm-hmm. Well, the several states are the free and independent nations that are the conglomerate of the United States of America. And they gave up that concession. They conceded. Most of them conceded after 1934 when Roosevelt took them to Washington and said, had them go to Washington and had them sign up for Reconstruction money after the Depression. Right. So they made contracts between the United States and the several states who now became de facto states, and they worked contractually with the federal government in order to get money back from them. It's a sad thing. You know,
it's interesting to me when I look at the federal government, it seems like they're doing the same thing that they're doing with individuals, like giving us all these perks, like licenses for all these privileges that we're allowed to do. It seems like they do the same thing with states, don't they? They give them money and then expect them to pay, the states to pay the federal government back in exchange for all of these stipulations and things, right?
Well, there's always a price. If somebody hands you money for nothing, I mean, if they give you a grant, certain things are conceded with the grant. It's contractual again, and it depends on the contract. But it's insane to think that a state gives their money to the federal government, who then gives them a portion of it back with concessions. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just insanity, isn't it?
Is that how the federal government is allowed to have, well, I wouldn't even say allowed, but is that how that process, the process by which the federal government is able to have these federal buildings in states and things? Because that's a crazy thing, too.
They don't have federal buildings in states. They have buildings that are leased by the GPA, the government procurement organization, GPO. Okay. But the land that they sit on has not been ceded to the United States. The matter of cessation, which is again in the Constitution, it says that the Congress can make laws for anything that's been ceded to them. Mm-hmm. That's a really, really hard process. The state has to agree. The federal government has to agree. They have to come to sort of a treaty, and it has to be signed on the dotted line. It has to go back and forth and signed, and then that land is ceded to the government of the United States or to the United States of America. So forts and magazines, that land is ceded in most cases. Mm-hmm. Years ago, I tried to find out what federal lands there were in Texas, and it's pretty darn tough. The General Land Office doesn't have the record of it. Really? They gave me what had been made up by somebody that was curious like me to see the ceded lands. But the forts that they have aren't ceded from the states. They're leased.
Did you say ports, like the ports importing along the coast and things?
Well, you've got Fort Ord, Fort Sam Houston, Fort wherever the military congregates.
Oh, right.
You've got Fort Irwin out there. And the United States doesn't own that land; they lease it.
Golly. Man.
Years ago, we did away with the airport here in Austin. It was Bergstrom Air Force. Well, when the Air Force pulled out of Austin, the land that it used, Bergstrom Air Force Base, went back to the owner of the land, which was the city of Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And then the city of Austin put an airport out there, which is the new Bergstrom Airport. But most of the land on which you see government troops, or like the federal courthouses, it doesn't belong to the You're not in the United States when you go in there. It's not like a foreign embassy.
Okay. So they don't even own, they just lease all this land.
Yes.
And gosh, that's crazy. And
just like they lease Guantanamo Bay from the Cubans.
Right. So now I want to ask you something about something kind of more personal that my wife and I are going to be going through, and that is the idea of birth certificates and getting a social security number for a child. Now, I believe if you have birth in a hospital, I think I read recently somewhere that if you don't fill out the paperwork, the hospital will do that for you. Have you heard that?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's true. And most hospitals won't let you out the door with your newborn unless you've got a birth certificate of some kind. And see, the birth certificates, if you look at the language of them, it's really scary because it says registrar, or I forget the name of the mother who reports the birth of the child. The mother is the one that signs the child into the system. Mm-hmm. It's really, really, really insidious.
So is that where the straw man gets created, the corporate version of ourselves?
Well, I don't...
Or no?
Basically, yes. According to, it's all in what you believe. You believe that that prohibition had been repealed, and I just told you it hadn't been. Right. It's all what you believe. Do you believe that they have dominion over that name? Probably so. Over that all cap name? Yes, probably so. Do I believe they have dominion over me because my parents got a birth certificate? Well, see, my birth certificate is different because it doesn't show that I'm a bastard. Mm-hmm. Most birth certificates say maiden name of mother and name of father, and so the two don't match, so they're not married. So the state steps in and takes the child as a ward of the court. Mm-hmm. Of the state, as they have to with bastardized children. So that's the trick behind that one.
So that's how the CPS, Child Protective Service, is able to essentially, whenever they deem necessary, they could come and take your child. That's because of that, right?
Well, it's because of that. It's because they have such tremendous power. Whoever created CPS is doomed to rot in hell, in my opinion. But they don't even look at the birth certificate. The birth certificate is something that people that study this stuff know about, but the entities who control us or try to control us don't. Right. They just know that they have a contractual obligation to do what they do.
Yeah, they don't know. So one question that my wife and I have been kicking around lately, and I'm just so excited to be able to ask you and someone who knows this stuff, is I wasn't sure if the child has a birth certificate. I wasn't sure if the state then has dominion over that child because of that, or because of the very fact that my wife and I went to the courthouse and actually got a marriage certificate and got married. Yeah, I know. That's weird. That's really weird. But we did that unknowingly, 6 years ago or whatever.
Well, everybody does.
Yeah. So does the state own the child because of that contract or because of the birth certificate?
Well, the state has an interest in the child because of that. There are three parties. Like if you went to get a divorce, there are three parties. There's the state, there's you and your wife. Mm-hmm. And then the state has dominion over the children, or so they believe.
They believe. Okay.
And they'll exercise that too. It's pretty tough not to. It's pretty tough to get away from there.
Yeah, because if you spank your child in the supermarket, God knows what kind of calls you'll be getting. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. And see, you have unalienable rights. You have a right. What the states have set themselves up as are parents patriae. Mm-hmm. So they are the supreme parent, just like in Big Brother in 1984. I mean, they are the one. And it's very, very difficult when they step in with all their force and might. It's difficult to fight them. It's difficult to get your kids back. There are no courts that you can go to that hear redress of grievance. There's no place you can do it. It's just you try not to get caught in that situation because it's really, really difficult.
Because really, we really should be living our lives as if we were sovereigns. That way we really live a life of integrity, and these things just hopefully don't happen to people, and they can avoid these kind of situations, right?
Well, I don't believe in the sovereign name, the sovereign tag.
Okay.
I believe there's only one sovereign, and we get our rights from that sovereign, and you can't be sovereign. You can't be co-sovereign. See, so that's really, really a misnomer. And people that claim they're sovereign, I'm just free. I mean, that's what I am. I'm just free. I have unalienable rights, and I can prove it to you. But as far as sovereign, I believe there is only one. I don't believe the states are sovereign. For instance, the Constitution in Texas says that Texas is a free and independent state, subject only to the Constitution of the United States.
Okay.
Can you be subject and sovereign?
Yeah, no, it's not possible.
No, you can't. So I am a subject of my Creator. Therefore, I'm not sovereign. But what I can do is I can follow the golden rule, and I can be good to people around me. I can treat them like I want to be treated. I think that is the law.
Right. So do you live in Texas or the state of Texas? I'm asking because I know there's a difference, but I forget what the difference is.
Well, the folks who are currently filling the chairs of what should be a government believe I live in the state of Texas. I believe I live in Texas.
Okay. So would that be like the Republic of Texas?
Well, no, the Republic of Texas was a free and independent nation that was, it starts with an A. My mind went blank. It was never, Texas has never really, really, really become part of the United States. Now, that's an argument I don't care to make in public because then I'm branded as Republic of Texas, and Republic of Texas are branded as nuts.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was the process for becoming a state, if you're a nation, is by treaty. And 7 times Sam Houston tried, and 7 times it failed.
Oh, wow.
So they were finally, what is that when they encroach on another piece of land and it starts with an A and then they take it? Oh. That's what Texas was annexed.
Annexed, okay.
I've read a lot of Texas history in the archives, and it's a process that's not legal for a nation. So Texas has been annexed, and it's pretended that she's been a state ever since.
Golly, there's so much. I love this information because it's, I wish I was taught this in school. It makes me upset.
Well, if you were taught that in school, then we would have a lawful government, wouldn't we? No, we would have a very small lawful government if you were taught that in school.
No, I know. You can't teach this stuff in school, but it's just, I wish it's so, I feel like I'm just, learning all kinds of new information.
Well, and just think about it. How can any government, which the people gave the power to the governments, how can any government take from you and give it to somebody else? Can't.
Yeah, especially the federal government. I mean, that's what we're talking about. So,
well, federal, state, I don't care. Your FTB is just as bad as the Fed.
Right. Wow, this is so good. All right, Dessie, we're up against another break. We are with Dessie Andrews, and I have so many questions. This is just amazing information, I believe. And we'll be right back with Dessie Andrews after this break. So rebounding is, in my mind, one of the best ways to detoxify your lymphatic system, and it's the only exercise on earth that will actually detoxify your lymphatic system. And your lymph system is responsible for storing toxins and chemicals and poisons that you're exposed to. And there's no pump for the lymph system. It doesn't have a heart, so you have to move it up and down, and it's filled with millions of one-way valves that get squeezed and pushed and opened and closed every time you jump. And we feel like we've found the best rebounder on the market today. It's the Rolls Royce of rebounding. It's called the Bellicon. And I highly, highly stand behind this product. It's absolutely amazing. If you want to hear what some of our guests said about it, check them out on our store. You can listen to what a lot of our guests have said about rebounding and the Bellicon in particular. So a lot of times people will go on the rebounder with oxygen for cancer if they're really sick. And it's one of the most powerful things you can do to cleanse your body and to exercise every single cell in your body, every organ in your body. It's the only internal organ exercise you could do do. And it's absolutely incredible. It also helps to rebuild bone density because of the up and down motion, the G-force that gets applied to every cell of your body, and it tightens and tones your body, and it's just really, really great aerobic exercise. And the Bellicon is made with straps, these bungee cords instead of springs, so it's silent, and they have a warranty on it. It's the best rebounder on the market today. So if you're in the market for one, I would highly recommend just saving up and getting the Bellicon, because there's no other rebounder on the market that's better than this thing. I firmly believe that. So if you're interested in it, check it out, extremehealthradio.com/Bellicon. That's B as in boy, ELLICON. And you can learn more about it and watch the videos on that page too. So thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy your rebounder, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Okay, we're having a good time here with Dessie Andrews. I feel like I could talk with her all day long. This is so great. I love it. So, Dessie, before the break, we were talking about some of the birth certificate things, and I wanted to ask you about the birth certificate and the Social Security numbers and things like that. Is it true that the Social Security number is sold as part of the stock exchange, or have you heard about that kind of thing?
Well, people say that, and they talk about the QSIP number and all that stuff. I know that what I've read in the codes is that the United States has a life insurance policy on all its subjects, and that when they die, they present the birth certificate, the death certificate, to the International Monetary Fund, and they're paid for that death.
Okay, wow, they're paid for that death.
Yes. So the United States is the beneficiary of a life insurance policy that's precluded or founded on the birth certificate, and it's paid on the death certificate. That's in the United States Code.
Is that part of the split trust that I've been hearing about, and divided title with our public and private side of who we are? Is that
no, I don't go to public and private side. I think that's a diversion.
Okay.
I get dizzy when people start going to the public and the private side.
Right.
I know that I don't doubt for a second that we pay, probably the Social Security we pay pays for the life insurance policy that the United States holds on us. I don't know. It's no different than Walmart holding a life insurance policy on their employees without their knowledge. That's all it is.
Right, right.
And that is in the code that they pay.
So is that why there's such a thing as the income tax, so that we could pay, so that we're basically surety for this interest and all that we have to pay the Federal Reserve for the money that's...
No, I believe the income tax is premised on a debt collection that we use the money that belongs to the Federal Reserve, and we have to pay rent.
Okay. So that would be what the income tax would be.
That's allegedly what the income tax is. The income tax is really one of the most misunderstood things, and because it really doesn't exist. I have unalienable rights. You can't lien my money. So when you go back, you keep going back and reference any of this stuff against the Declaration of Independence and say, hey, what happened? How come they're liening my money? How can they take something I earned and keep it for themselves? The thing you have to remember is the United States doesn't produce anything. They're not they only take. They don't produce. How if you only took and you didn't produce, how long would you survive?
Yeah, not long at all.
Not long at all. So when the people say, well, the government gave it to me, well, wait just a minute. How can the government give you something that they didn't produce? People just don't think to the very basic bottom of the problem here. But if you go to the laws of the United States, are codified, the statutes, they're codified, but the actual law is in what they call the statutes at large. You can go and read the statutes at large. The best source for that is John Rowland's site, constitution.org, which he just has everything on there. But if you start at the very beginning, you open up one stat, which is the first statute at large book, and you start reading. You'll see that the first 22 pages are indexes just indexes for what is to come. The law starts on 1 Stat 23. This is when Congress first convened after the Constitution. They first convened. this is the law that they laid down. And the first thing was, at 1 Stat 23, it says that every government officer appointed or elected, there's a section on the federal, and there's a section on the states, the several states, shall first take an oath that says, I so-and-so swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Do you know that nobody does? Nobody does. Not the president, not any of the people in California, not any people in Texas. No public official takes that oath. And without it, they have no authority to act. Wow. Then, after they deal with the oaths at 1 Stat 23, which is a reinforcement of Article 6 of the Constitution, Article 6 of the Constitution for the United States of America, Clause 2, or Section 2 says that's a supremacy clause, that the Constitution will be supreme. And the Article 3 talks about the oath that all officials, state and federal, have to take. And then it reinforces it in 1 Stat 23, and it says the oath, I, Dessie Andrews, hereby swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States. In Texas, they never use the word support. Of course, they don't take that oath, and so they have no authority to act, but yet we let them.
Right.
Then, after that, after the 1 Stat 23, they go on to set the tariffs. The United States had to have some way to support itself. That was the reason for the Constitution. That was the reason for to a more perfect union. Mm-hmm. So when the colonies were declared states, there were several states, they were free and independent nations, then land was ceded to them at the ports in those states, like this port of New York. The United States owns that land. It was ceded to them as part of when the states were set up.
Okay.
So any ship that sailed into the port from a foreign entity, foreign corporation, had to pay taxes to do business in the United States. Only makes sense. That's how they supported themselves.
Right.
On the taxes that they gleaned from people who wanted to do business in the States.
Right, and that's how they were able to do that all the way up until 33, right?
Well, no, they started to erode it long before that, but that's how they were to sustain themselves.
Yeah.
And you only needed a government big enough to collect the taxes at the ports and small enough to stay out of everybody's business in order for that to succeed. Also, states can sustain themselves the same way. They can tax foreign entities that want to do business in California or Texas, and that's how they would sustain their government. There is a method in place of taxation to sustain a government, which is all that taxes are for.
So most people will say, and they've said it to me, well, this is a classic argument, right? You've heard it 1,000 times. Well, who's going to build our roads? Who's going to build our schools? And
you do. The same people that do it now, you do. Where did the people that build roads or schools produce one single dime in order to build those? They bond you, they float bonds, they tax you to do it.
Mm-hmm. Because doesn't the roads come out of like your gasoline tax and things?
No.
It doesn't? Okay.
No.
I thought the gasoline tax was there for some of that and for the schools.
Well, you might think that, but good luck.
Yeah.
Dwight Eisenhower is the president that started the interstates, and he did it so that we would, no different than Hitler. Hitler built the Autobahns to transport military conveyances, and that's exactly why the interstates were built in this country. But they used tax dollars to do it, and that's money that they took from the people because, again, they don't produce anything. So the roads were all built with your money, and then they charge you or they tax you in order to use your own stuff. Well, you can have sessions if you want them to build a school in your neighborhood, you can sign on to a bond and do that. Mm-hmm. But they can't force you to do this stuff. They can't force you to do it because you have unalienable rights.
So a while back you were talking about how, what did you say, something about commerce is
transportation.
Transportation is commerce, and is that why a lot of people will always say that we're traveling down the road instead of we're driving because of that distinction?
They talk about traveling because driving is a commercial word. Most of the stuff, English is the master of the commercial language. Everything in English is commerce. And so it just phrases like that. You know, I was traveling, I wasn't driving, I was traveling. I don't choose to make any argument, but I just try to stay unobtrusive and not be noticed.
Right. So do you know anything about what that whole Admiral Maritime Equity Law is and why it's applied to people on the land? Can you explain about that?
Well, I kind of believe that, and I kind of don't. Well, see, people through the ages have, especially since, Lysander Spooner did this in the 30s. He said exactly what was going on, and he knew exactly what it was then. People see the devastation that goes on around us, the suppression, and they try to find a reason for it. They're always trying to reason their way out of it. Mm-hmm. The Constitution at Article 3 says that there will be three kinds of courts in the United States. There will be courts of equity, courts of common law, and courts of admiralty. Mm-hmm. And so because this looks like we're servants on a ship, people try to equate military or admiralty law to what they do. I can make a case for that, but I won't, because I don't believe it to be really true. I don't think they follow any law. Well,
yeah, it's something that my wife and I have been talking about. It's almost as if they've got the guns, they've got the tanks. What does it really matter if we know all this stuff, if they can do really whatever they want? It seems like that's what they're doing anyway,
Well, what I try to do, Justin, is I try to only worry about or think about things over which I have control. I have control over me, and I can, if they try to ensnare me, I can try to get out of the net, and that's how I would use my energy. Mm-hmm. I try to help other people stay out of the net. I try to like the mortgage thing is such an atrocity. It's unbelievable. This is the biggest fraud that has ever been, other than Lincoln, that's been perpetuated on the people. Mm-hmm. But you go back to Lincoln when he did away with the states and the states' rights. A thing called the Reconstruction Acts were put into place, and they're onerous. They're military law. And I wrote a letter to the Library of Congress and asked when they'd been repealed, and they said they never were. So we still are under the Reconstruction Acts. But see, that's absolutely illegal. But they can get away with it because the Constitution says that the Congress shall meet on the first Monday of in December for at least one day. When the Congress didn't meet on the first Monday in December of 1865, mm-hmm. we no longer had any Congress. It was disbanded because that's what the Constitution dictated. Then later they changed that to be like February or so, but the October 1860 Congress was adjourned sine die, which means the same ones that left it had to open it up, and that never happened again. Wow. So we haven't had a lawful government since that time. And then they imposed what you could term it military law, the Articles of Reconstruction, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. They imposed that on the land. But what right did they have? Who are they, and what right did they have? You're talking about the tax and the Federal Reserve? The Federal Reserve Act was not the worst act I've ever read. It was sneaked through in 1913. Mm-hmm. And what it says, the main components of it are that there will be a central bank, and that there will be money generated from running that central bank. So all the funds went through the central bank, which was operated by the Federal Reserve. It says that it will have a finite life of 20 years. So in 1933, the Federal Reserve Act died.
Right.
It says that the 6% of the profits generated from this new outfit would go to the Federal Reserve banks. 94% of the profits generated would go to the Secretary of the Treasury of the United States of America to buy gold to stabilize the dollar. Okay. Then they passed, that went away in 1933, just died, went out of sight. People still complain about the Federal Reserve, but here's the real truth. In 1933, the Glass-Steagall Act was passed. Before, the Federal Reserve Act died in December. On December 23rd is when it died. The Glass-Steagall Act was passed sometime in the spring of 1933. Uh-huh. And it's exactly like the Federal Reserve Act. It reads exactly the same, except where the Federal Reserve was the one taking care of it. They created a new corporation, and that corporation should be called the FDIC.
Okay.
So throughout the Glass-Steagall Act, we come to the corporation, which is the FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which was created. So, and they changed several things. They made it infinite. They didn't have a 20-year life on it like the Federal Reserve did. Mm-hmm. And they said that Congress said that for 6% of the profits generated from this enterprise will go to the Federal Reserve banks and Federal Reserve members, and 94% of the profits will go to the Federal Reserve.
Oh, wow. Really? 94%?
Yeah. So that's when Congress gave everything to the Federal Reserve.
So really, it's the FDIC in '33 that perpetuated the federal.
No, it's Congress. Put it where it is. Belongs. Congress did this. Congress.
Right, because they passed it. Wow.
So rather than the profits going to the Secretary of the Treasury in order to buy gold to stabilize the dollar, all of the profits go 6% to the Federal Reserve members, which are the banks, or Federal Reserve banks, and 94% to the Federal Reserve.
And so these banks are privately owned, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah.
And there's what, like 6 of them or something like that, or 12 that own that make up the Federal Reserve Bank.
Well, they're the members.
Okay.
You have Federal Reserve, you have Federal Reserve banks, you have Federal Reserve System. The Federal Reserve System is the agreement between the Federal Reserve and the United States government. That's where the president appoints the chairman. The Federal Reserve Chairman. That's the system in which it operates. Okay. So you can't just say Federal Reserve. You have to say Federal Reserve Bank, which is a member of the Federal Reserve. You have to say Federal Reserve, which is that thing that we don't know what it is, and the Federal Reserve System. And the first time I saw the Federal Reserve System was when 20 years ago when they changed the $100 bill. That was when it first appeared, because I'm a seal person. I watch the seals. Uh-huh. Because the flags and the seals tell you who they are. Uh-huh. And the seal changed on the $100 bill, and then it changed on all of the things. And that's the first time I saw the Federal Reserve System. Oh,
really? Mm-hmm. Wow. So where do you think this is headed? I mean, they've cut out, I think they've basically eradicated, 93 or 94% of the value of the dollar. So where do you see this headed?
Any fiat currency dies, Justin. Any fiat currency dies.
Right. So where do you see the final, thing going in the future?
Well, I would really hope that people would start to read just a few things like read the Constitution, man. I mean, it's real simple. Mm-hmm. Read it and see what the Congress has power over. Very, very, very little. Right. And if you see that it's contained in Washington, D.C., you can say, wow, what's it doing over here to me? Mm-hmm. See what a California, you live in California, you're a Californian. I don't even want to call you a citizen. That's not a good name. You're a Californian. Mm-hmm. You're protected by a sovereign nation, that one of the several states, California, which has become a political subdivision of the United States, but not in your mind.
Right.
And I believe we make our own reality. And if you know where you are and you know where you stand and you know what's right, then that's where you are. Because I'm sure in your health business that you talk about reality. We manifest things into reality, and that's my reality.
Yeah, because all of this stuff, it's all fictitious anyway, isn't it? All these corporations, and it's all fictitious. And,
it's fake, and as long as you spend any energy on it, or you worry about it, or you've asked me questions over which I have no control, so really I don't, to me they're not real, because I know how much fakery is out there. Mm-hmm. So I deal in situations like I can help people with their mortgage problems. That I can deal with because I understand the hypocrisy and the criminality of the mortgage companies or whoever the hell they are, mm-hmm. And what they're doing to people. That I can deal with. I know who I am, and if they come after me, then I can take a stand and deal with it.
So do you have like a driver license, or do you have any of those documents?
No, I don't, because I had a Texas driver license years ago, but then they passed a law, or what passes for law, that you couldn't get a driver license without a Social Security number, so I could no longer get a driver license because I have no Social Security number.
Oh, right.
So I do have, luckily, God takes care of me, a German driver license.
Okay.
So when they push me, I don't flip it out. But that never expires. The Germans, those silly people, think that once you attain the skill to operate a car, that you can continue to do that. It's not going to go away.
Right.
So they have no expiration date on their driver license. So I'm very fortunate in that I have that.
Wow. So if you ever get pulled over, what do you do? I guess you probably wouldn't get pulled over.
They say driver license. I say I didn't know I needed one. You know, my 18-year-old grandson, when he didn't have a driver, we told him, don't get a driver license. He didn't listen to us. But then I bought him a car when he was 18, and he started driving it. And, you know, they wreck it within the first 500 miles. You know they do that. So he wrecked it, and I had been trying to get insurance because I knew he'd wreck it. I had been trying to get insurance, but he didn't have a driver license yet. I didn't have a driver license, and I couldn't get insurance without one. So he wrecked it. So we come down. I mean, he hit somebody else. So we come down to the common law. If I hurt anybody or their property, I have to pay for it. So I paid. I made the person whole that he hit.
Okay.
And they charge him with failure to maintain financial responsibility. Well, wait a minute. What was that? If they're not financially responsible, no driver license, and failure to yield right of way. So when he went on the driver license, they said, well, he said, I don't have one. They said, well, we'll give you a couple of months to get one. So he went back. They said, well, did you get your driver license? And he said, no, I've looked into it, and I'm not going to get one. Because he had. He plays online games, you know, and they discuss these things. And somebody told him to go to some website and see, because that's licensed to do something which would otherwise be illegal, is it not?
Right.
So he determined he wasn't going to get one. And so the guy, he says, no, I've decided not to get one. The guy says, okay, dismissed. He just dismissed the charge.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, no big deal. I mean, and I'm going, wow. I mean, what does that tell you?
That's wild, because really, we don't really understand that all of these things are voluntary, aren't they? All these things.
They're all voluntary, but I did some extensive research for a client of mine. She was having trouble with a city, municipality, and so I went into all the. You have to go to the administrative laws because everything is administrative. We have no judiciary, so. What the Texas Administrative Code says is that all of these things apply, all of these fines apply, all of these ordinances apply, no driver license, no blah, 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 you know, on and on. But it says these apply only if you have a valid Texas driver license.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So none of them apply if you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Dessie, do you have a website or an email if people want to contact you, or...
Well, I have an email. I don't have a website. I'm going to give all this up and start to write books. Then you can...
Yeah, we need you to start writing some books. Too much knowledge. It's locked in that brain of yours, you know?
Yeah. No, I'm going to write legal thrillers and use real case.
Yeah.
My email is Dessie, DESSIE. Well, you know my email. But you're free to put that out.
Dessie.andrews@gmail, right? gmail.com. Okay, we'll put that on the show page. And any plans for a website or just writing a book or things?
No, I'm just going to quit doing all this stuff that has no impact or gets nowhere because of the courts. I'm really starting down the oath trail right now because I had a friend who was in court. And, you know, it's so frustrating to go to court because... Number one, you have to hire an attorney, which doesn't guarantee you that you'll get anywhere. And it's very frustrating when I feel that I know more about the particular law than the attorney does. And, you know, it just is, it's maddening to me. But still, we have no, they're just corporate courts, and they're not de jure, they're not real.
Yeah.
And, so my friend got ruled against, and so he put in an application. He disqualified the judge because he doesn't have the federal oath that is mandated by the Constitution of the United States, and mandated by the Texas Constitution, and mandated by 4 U.S.C. 101, and mandated by 1 Stat 23. It's mandated, and unless you have that oath, you can't sit as a public official anywhere.
Wow.
And so he's trying to disqualify the judge, and the judge above him is going to give him a whitewash, so he's disqualifying the judge above him. And we can move right on up because not even the Supreme Court judges have that oath.
Gosh, so it's just...
And the President of the United States has never taken an oath because the oath has to be notarized, certified, and recorded. And no presidential oath has ever been recorded.
What do they do with them?
Oh, they stand there at inauguration and take that oath like that's the real deal, but it has to be subscribed to, it has to be signed, and it has to be recorded. You try to get a congressman's oath. I dare you.
It's impossible.
Try to get a congressman's oath, which has to be certified and recorded.
Wow, golly.
They're not recorded. So if I didn't take an oath that I had to be fair and honest and decent, then I don't have to be, do I?
No. Yeah, gosh, there's so much to this, isn't there? There's just, it's like so many layers.
We're allowing lawless, I guess, Quentin Tarantino, inglorious bastards to dictate to us what is and what isn't.
Yeah.
We forget who we are. We're free men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody reads the Declaration of Independence, they can see this is exactly what's going on today, only a little bit worse.
Right. Golly. Well, Dessie, this has been a really fun show, and man, I feel like I could talk with you for hours. Thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate that a lot.
You're more than welcome anytime.
Would you mind holding on for just 1 second?
Go ahead.
Excellent. Wow, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us on this edition of Extreme Health Radio. Again, it is extremehealthradio.com/67 if you're interested in the show page for this particular show. And wow, Dessie Andrews, I'm just so interested. I had a list a mile long of things I wanted to ask her, and there's so much interesting information that just isn't really taught in schools and isn't really taught in the to the public. And so I feel like this is very important for us to know what our rights are, who we are, where we live, and all these kind of different things, so that we can really just live an honorable life and be free of oppression and not necessarily be reliant upon the government services for different things, and know who we are and all that. So thank you again for listening. We are hopefully going to be doing many more shows like this. We're going to stick to 3 shows a week on the health subjects, and then we'll do 1 show a week on a subject similar to this. So I want to thank you. I want to thank Mike Adams of naturalnewsradio.com for having us on his network. And I want to thank you for listening and spending some time with us. Please email me and let me know what you think of the show. And if you are interested in supporting us, we would greatly, greatly appreciate your support. And I want to just thank you to those recently who have donated. I can't tell you how much we appreciate that, my wife and I. And it really does help to pay the bills here and pay for the equipment and the monthly costs and all that. So thank you so much for that. And if you'd like to donate, you can do that on our website, extremehealthradio.com/donate. And some people send in, $5 or $10 a month, or, one-time fee of a couple dollars or whatever you have. So if you can, that would be so great. And we also have a store too with lots of great products. I think we have like 75 products in our store. We've got really great things like, like the Vitamix and the Blendtec blenders. We've got a yoga trapeze, different herbal cleanses. We've got this far infrared sauna, all kinds of great stuff in our store. So make sure to check that out if you're ever in the market to buy different things for your health. We've got lots of them, and we're going to be redesigning the store here soon too, so stay tuned for that. And if you want to join our mailing list, we've got lots of great subscribers, a few hundred actually, and it's really growing fast. And we send out emails about once a week, so we don't want to bombard you. So that's a great thing. You can go to extremehealthradio.com/subscribe, or you'll see our mailing list forms on most of the web pages on our website. And feel free also to follow us on Facebook. We would greatly, greatly appreciate that. We are looking to grow our Facebook followers so we can help spread the word and help more people to heal and things. So if you want to join us on Facebook, click like and follow us. That would be excellent. Or you can pass the show on to your friends, and that's another great way to support us too. So with all that out of the way, I want to thank you for listening and really being a part of what we do. It's an honor and it's a privilege to bring this information to you. And hopefully we're helping to change your mind about some things, about different issues, and expand and help you grow and all that good stuff. So if there's anything I could ever do for you, just email me, Justin at extremehealthradio.com.